I'm the Game Triple H, and I would like to personally welcome you to
Wrestling Trope Alert.
You know who I am? I'm FIT FINLAY! Oh my God! The Belfast Bruiser! He came out of and this man is paying for 400 years of what he has done to my country!
Actually, turn over. And brother, he left.
Live, baby! Athletes! Away elbow drop right that gives a whole new restructuring end up.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling Trope Alert, the channel where we analyze professional wrestling. If this is your first time here, please remember to subscribe for future content. Thank you for watching. FIT Finlay, real name David Finlay Jr. Finlay was born January 31st, 1958 in the city of Carrickfergus, 18 kilometers from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Finlay was born during a time of intense social unrest known as the Troubles. But although there was chaos in the streets, Finlay says he had a happy childhood surrounded by his family and his friends. Finlay is the son of David Finlay, also a major wrestling name in his country during the 60s and 70s. FIT Finlay is a wrestling veteran. He started in the wrestling business working for his father at the young age of 14 as young Apollo, using bathroom utensils as entrance gear.
The plume on top actually was a toilet brush.
Eventually, Finlay's ambitions took him away from his country and on to British promotion Joint Promotions. This promotion was owned by longtime wrestling promoter Max Crabtree, and Joint Promotions for 20 years had a wrestling slot on British sports program World of Sport. Every Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, wrestling would be televised on ITV, BBC's closest competitor. In the 70s and 80s, World of Sport was one of the most seen broadcasts in the United Kingdom. This show had such world-renowned stars such as Giant Aztecs, Johnny Saint, and of course, Big Daddy. Fun fact, Big Daddy's real name is Shirley Crabtree.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Big Daddy was trained by George Smith, and Big Daddy's brother is the owner of the promotion, Max Crabtree.
Those people like professional wrestling. No explanations needed. For those who don't like it, any explanation would not be acceptable.
Finlay portrayed the Irish-born wrestler in World of Sport, playing off the animosity of the political scene of the time. Finlay's wrestling career also took him to the land of the rising sun. He wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he wrestled Jushin Thunder Liger and many more. Before WCW, he was also a constant presence in CWA, the biggest European promotion left operating by the early 90s, Catch Wrestling Association, legendary promoter and former wrestler OTTO WANZ company. Fun fact, along with Harley Race, Kamala, Antonio Inoki and a few more, OTTO WANZ also body slammed Andre the Giant. Finlay was CWA's Intercontinental Champion for most of the 90s, a reign that started in July of 93 and only ended in October of 98 due to Finlay's commitments with World Championship Wrestling. In 1996, Finlay would sign for WCW working as the character Belfast Bruiser. Finlay had his first match on January 18th against Brad Armstrong. They wrestled on WCW's B show at the time, Saturday Night. he would be the Belfast Bruiser for almost 6 months. During this time, Finlay mostly feuded with William Regal, then known as Lord Steven Regal, a feud that started on WCW Saturday Night, January 27th. Finlay interrupted a Regal match and began to lay the violence to Regal. Regal had his own stable at this time, named the Blue Bloods. Lord Steven Regal, Earl Robert Eaton, former member of the Midnight Express, Squire David Taylor, and also their butler, Jeeves. Finlay feuded with all three men throughout the year. This storyline was a continuation of Finlay's earlier storylines with Regal and Taylor in the European wrestling scene prior to this, and also playing off the real-life animosity known as the Troubles. It was during this time that Finlay debuted on pay-per-view. Finlay wrestled Regal at Uncensored 1996 in a very physical 17-minute match.
Yanking down the cup. Watch his kick now.
Finlay picks up the win in this match by disqualification, following interference by Eaton and Taylor. Fun fact, 4 out of the 5 matches Finlay had with Regal during this time ended by disqualification, and the only one that didn't was a parking lot brawl. Notable matches Finlay had from his time as the Belfast Bruiser were a loss to Randy Savage live on WCW's flagship show, WCW Monday Nitro, and his last WCW match as the Belfast Bruiser on the WCW Worldwide show in a losing effort against Diamond Dallas Page on June 9th. Finlay would disappear from WCW for a year and a half. During this time, he would again wrestle for Catch Wrestling Association, continuing his CWA Intercontinental title run. In October of 1997, Finlay would return to WCW, this time with the moniker FIT Finlay, spelled with an E instead of an A, and ditching the Belfast Bruiser nomenclature altogether. This time Finlay would also be clean-shaven, but still holding on to his mullet. Finlay returned to in-ring action in a match where he sustained a loss against Chris Benoit on an episode of Monday Night Nitro. Fortunately, by 1997, the people in charge recognized Finlay's talents, and Finlay was paired with most of WCW's midcard, instead of the constant matchups Finlay had with the Blue Bloods the year prior. FIT Finlay gained a foothold in WCW's midcard, and Finlay would put on wrestling clinics against some of the best up-and-coming wrestlers in WCW's roster. Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Ultimo Dragon, Perry Saturn, Scott Steiner. He would also participate in the 60-man World War III match, live on pay-per-view. And on February 19, 1998, Finlay would wrestle Bill Goldberg as part of his 173-match winning streak. Fun fact, apparently Finlay is number 43. Finlay's run in WCW's midcard would culminate with Finlay winning the WCW television title from Booker T, 8 years before Finlay was a member of Booker T's court in Booker's amazing King Booker run. This was not a fun day at the office for Booker T, a brutal physical match as per usual when FIT Finlay is involved. After a distraction from Chris Benoit, who basically stared at Booker T, Finlay delivers a tombstone piledriver. Finlay wins the television title from Booker T with The Undertaker's move. Or is it? The tombstone piledriver was Finlay's pre-WWE finishing move. The Undertaker's signature move first seen Survivor Series 1990 against Koko B. Ware. The tombstone piledriver is the move most commonly associated with the Phenom. The earliest recorded footage of Finlay using the tombstone that I could find was on World of Sport dated June 1985. FIT Finlay used the tombstone many years before The Undertaker. Neither man invented a tombstone, however. I found footage of Mick McManus in the 60s and Andre the Giant in the 70s using the famous Undertaker move. FIT Finlay kept the TV title for about a month. He would defend the TV title against Chavo Guerrero on WCW Saturday Night, Chris Benoit on the Slamboree 1998 pay-per-view, the fucking Renegade on Saturday Night, Jim Neidhart on Thunder, Eddie Guerrero and Norman Smiley on the main show Nitro, to name a few. Finlay would lose the title to the man he got it from, Booker T, at the next pay-per-view, the Great American Bash on June 14th, 1998. Booker T would pull double duty and wrestle twice on one night. Booker had a match with Chris Benoit, with whom he was feuding with at the time. Finlay was serving as a third wheel for Booker T and Benoit's rivalry. And Booker T and Benoit were engaged in a best-of-7 gimmick series of matches. Classic Booker T and Benoit booking, because Booker T and Benoit's feud seemingly lasted forever. Booker T saw himself in feuds with Chris Benoit all the way to 2007, when Booker T finally left the WWE. Also, this best-of-7 series gimmick was reused in 2006. In 2006, however, Booker was unable to finish the series of matches, and Randy Orton and FIT Finlay would wrestle for Booker against Benoit. After facing Benoit earlier in the night, Booker T would face FIT Finlay. They had a decent match, but sadly the crowd wasn't a technical wrestling type of crowd, and that hurt the match somewhat. Finlay and Booker had some decent action, with the usual Finlay violence mixed in. Match lasts for 13 minutes and it ends when Finlay goes to tombstone Booker. Booker T tries to reverse Finlay's tombstone, but fails to balance himself with Finlay's weight. Both men fall, and Finlay the veteran turns it into a pinfall attempt. Side note, we only know how this sequence is supposed to go because of the amount of times we have seen The Undertaker pull it off. And also the times he hasn't. This 1996 crowd probably didn't even realize that the botch happened. Then Finlay drives himself to the corner. Booker T takes advantage and Booker piledrives Finlay to a 3 count and wins the television title back from Finlay. This would be the one and only title run that Finlay would have in his 5 years with World Championship Wrestling. Side note, this would also happen in the WWE. In his time with Vince McMahon's company, he also won a single solitary championship title. Finlay won the United States Championship from Bobby Lashley on July 14, 2006 on SmackDown.
Bobby Lashley elevated enzymes in the liver.
And lost it to Ken Kennedy on September 1st, 2006, also on SmackDown. I made a video talking about Finlay's US Championship title run. If you are interested, links are in the description. After losing to Booker T, Finlay had a brief rivalry with the Wunderkind Alex Wright. Alex Wright was 23 years old at this point, and Alex is a second-generation professional wrestler. Alex is the son of Steve Wright, a very accomplished wrestler during the 70s and 80s that had reached the twilight of his career by the early 90s. Steve Wright had some of his last matches against Finlay in CWA, and young Alex also wrestled Finlay for CWA. Alex Wright accused Finlay of having retired his father Steve, which again sparked a rivalry that evolved from Finlay's history prior to WCW, much like 2 years earlier when Finlay had a feud with William Regal and the Blue Bloods. Finlay's short rivalry with Alex Wright would begin on the October 12th episode of Monday Nitro, with Alex claiming that he was the greatest European wrestler in WCW.
Shut up, you people! I beat the British jellyfish, and I am the greatest European wrestler! You ended my father's career!
The Wunderkind would win the 2-minute match with a roll-up and some top rope leverage. Then the British Bulldog shows up and Finlay decks him because he's British.
This is such good.
Finlay's rivalry with Alex Wright would culminate in the Halloween Havoc 1999 pay-per-view, and the week after, Alex and Finlay would have another match in the October 29th episode of Thunder. At Halloween Havoc, Finlay and Wright wrestled for 5 minutes, in a match clearly designed to enhance the young Alex. 5-minute match that ends with a reverse neckbreaker. The following week on Thunder, Finlay gets his hit back by punishing the poor young man and tombstone piledriving Alex to a pinfall win. WCW then put Finlay on cruise control, after his mini-feud with Alex Wright. Notable matches from this time were Finlay against the legend Bret Hart on Nitro, which Finlay lost, Finlay against the now television champion Chris Jericho on WCW Saturday Night, where Finlay again loses. Finlay then recovers his momentum by giving a tombstone piledriver to Scott Putski. The same thing would also happen to Van Hammer, who was also defeated at the hands of Finlay on WCW Sold Out 1999 pay-per-view in early January. Finlay would then sustain a loss to Rick Steiner in March of '99. In May of '99, Finlay wrestled the Sandman in his hack gimmick, hack spelled H-A-K, because this was the late 90s and misspelling things was cool back then. Sadly, Finlay was now stuck in the hardcore title scene, the all-inclusive title that includes every wrestler the company is too lazy to create storylines for. Classic WWE and WCW.
WrestleMania win. Wait a minute. Don't do it, Gronk! Oh my God! He's covering Mojo. 3! Gronk is the 24/7 champ. He's doing so as champion. Run, Gronk, run!
So Finlay found himself feuding with one half of the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs. At the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, Finlay manages to win the Junkyard Hardcore Invitational, his only other accolade from his time in WCW, along with his television title win. A match in a poorly lit scrapyard with rusty cars, explosions and all the right ingredients for something to go really wrong somewhere. This was more of a boneyard match than a boneyard match. During the ending moments of this match, Finlay gets put in the trunk of a Chevy Caprice. Someone shows up with a forklift and stuffs it into a car compactor. There's fire and there's an explosion. Finlay manages to escape and then wins the match by jumping a fence. How WCW of WCW. Finlay and Knobbs' rivalry continued through the rest of the '99 year, and both men had a string of untelevised live events during which, in one of them, Finlay sustains a severe leg injury after Brian Knobbs drives Finlay through a table, causing Finlay to cut his leg and receive
He got 330 stitches on his leg.
Jackson, Mississippi, and we were doing a hardcore match, and I called Brian Knobbs. And he propped the table up in the corner. I went through it.
Finlay would return to action almost 5 months later on the December 20th episode of Monday Night Nitro, teaming with, of all people, Brian Knobbs, defeating the team of Meng and Norman Smiley, in a match that ended on a bathroom for some reason. Finlay would continue to linger in the hardcore title scene as part of the Hardcore Army, a stable made up of Knobbs, Finlay and the dog, Al Green. And for the most part, this was the year 2000 for FIT Finlay. Finlay wrestled his last match for World Championship Wrestling on a German exclusive pay-per-view, WCW MILLENNIUM FINAL, in November, 6 months before the eventual demise of World Championship Wrestling. Finlay wrestled twice in this event. Finlay had a Bavarian hardcore match against Norman Smiley, which he lost, and he was also in a battle royale with 18 men, with notable names such as Rey Mysterio, Lance Storm, Bill DeMott, among many others. And this battle royale was won by the late great Mike Awesome. FIT Finlay would then wrestle a mere 5 times for European wrestling promotion and would find a more permanent home to ply his craft in the WWE in January 2006. This is a complimentary video to my other video on FIT Finlay's only title win in the WWE. If you'd like to watch that, links are in the description. Hope you enjoyed my trip down memory lane regarding FIT Finlay's earlier career in WCW.